Killer, Dipset, Check my stats, man. 78. I got to be the best living, man. You already know. Like Alex Trebek, you're in jeopardy. Yes, sir, we got the recipe.
Welcome. You are now tuned into the SFG Sports Podcast, episode 3. I'm your host, Jerry Howe, and we're here to have a good time tonight, man. We're going to break down what we saw in the NFL on Sunday, and then we're going to get into NBA Finals preview, and as always, I'm going to give you a weekly music pick for you to check out and to ride to, or your morning commute, or your daily Zoom conferences that you have in this COVID-19 world. So, without further ado, man, I'm gonna get right into it. This NFL Sunday was a very interesting Sunday. Obviously, with week 2, we had a lot of injuries, so a lot of teams had a lot of things that they had to get into, a lot of adjustments that they had to make. But due to scheduling, a lot of teams were able to play a lot of garbage teams, man. So the first game I'm going to talk about is the Atlanta and Chicago game. Like I mentioned before on the podcast, I was surprised that Nick Foles wasn't Chicago's starter to begin with. When you look at what Chicago has in terms of the skill positions, that's a perfect team for Nick Foles, man. Jimmy Graham's a good possession tight end. Allen Robinson's a legit number 1 receiver. Miller and Cohen brought speed. Cohen tore his ACL now, so he's going to be out. But Montgomery can play. Solid running back that can catch it out of the backfield. The kid Ridley, he's coming along. So I mean, they had a lot of good things to like about their team, especially with their defense. Their defense is rugged. They can play. They can get after the passer. They can stop the run. They literally can do everything. If that say they had a weakness, I would say it's the back end. But that's really every team in the NFL. That's not, strict to just the Bears. So when you look at it, I was surprised. And so that was a game that I ended up flipping to when it was in the second half, and when I noticed that Nick Foles was winning the game, and Nick Foles was doing Nick Foles things. He's comfortable in that system. That's an Andy Reid system, and on down the tree. And he was comfortable, and he went out there and played good ball. And the Atlanta Falcons, man, what is there that you could say about the Falcons? I mean, they have a lot of talent offensively. They had a 26-10 lead without Julio Jones on the field. Like, they're really talented offensively. Their defense is okay. They can play with a lead. Well, I take it back. They can't play with a lead, but I don't know what's going on in Atlanta. And the fact that the coach hasn't been fired, I don't know what he has on the owner, Arthur Blank, but it's time for him to go. I mean, you can't have all these meltdowns and it not be coaching. That's coaching. Whether it be the conditioning level, whether it be the psyche of the team, the psyche of the players, I don't know, but that's coaching. Moving right along, guys. The Los Angeles Rams and the Buffalo Bills. What a great game that was. I had picked the Buffalo Bills in that game, and Buffalo Bills almost let me down. They almost let me down, but they were able to bring it out. I mean, they give up a 28-3 lead with that defense. I mean, I didn't get to see that game in full. I caught the last few drives, and I tell you what, man, Josh Allen is the real deal. You gave him a legit number 1 receiver. You have speed on the outside that can run. The running back is solid. Tight ends can block. You can catch the ball. They're not superstar tight ends or anything of that nature, but they're just solid players. And then the way Allen's able to run the football, I call him discount Cam Newton. He's really playing good ball. The Rams are really playing good ball. The Rams offense is back. McVay has those guys rolling again, so the Rams are going to be something to reckon with. But that was a close game at home. Questionable pass interference call. I would have liked it to not be called in that situation normally, but it benefited me in my pick, so I'll take it. But that was a questionable call. But as a corner, past 5 yards, you can't have your hand on a receiver. So if you have your hands on them, you have a chance to call it. So that's really on them. Moving right along, Cleveland, Washington. Cleveland's feasting on bad teams. Washington's D line has some bang up injuries. You could see the impact after Chase Young left the game. It became a completely different game for the Browns. But I tell you what, man, Baker Mayfield, if he's handing the ball off 40 times, man, that gives the Browns a chance to win. Their defense is just good enough, but those running backs are special. And if the running backs can continue to do what they do, they play a ball control type game. Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry keep you honest on the outside to where you can't upload the box with 8 people. This could be a pretty solid team. I don't know about playoffs, but they should be able to win some games. I mean, they have all of the talent in the world on that team. It's just up to whether or not the quarterback's any good. Washington football team, they're a team on the rise. Haskins had a horrible game, made some bad reads, bad throws. But I like what I see from them in general, how they're building. Their defense is going to be really good. When they get some corners that can really play, they're going to be a really, really good defense. And I think Haskins is going to do nothing but get better. I think they just need a couple more weapons for him. Those receivers are young, but I don't see any star potential in those receivers. And as good as McLaurin seems to be, I still think he's just a really good number 2 receiver. I don't foresee him being a number 1. Especially when you're small like that. It's rare that you have number 1s in today's era that are small like that. Antonio Brown is kind of the outlier because he's so shifty and he runs his route so well. And he's able to get downfield. McLaurin, I don't see that type of shiftiness. I see that type of explosion, but I don't believe he'll be the route runner that Antonio Brown turned into. So I think they need to get him a legit number 1 receiver. If they view it as they have it on the roster, so be it. But if they're going to have a top 5, top 10 pick, there's a kid that sat out in LSU named Jamar Chase that I think will fit the bill for them. But, we'll see. So Cleveland. And then also with Cleveland, man, another point with Cleveland. I'll tell you what, man, if you're going to run the ball and you have that much talent in the backfield and you have that much into your offensive line, I wouldn't be paying both Landry and OBJ double-digit millions. Got to be honest. I wouldn't do it. Now, you have him under contract. You figured it out, so you can pay him for right now. But ultimately, man, if I could get some picks or if I could trade OBJ for a good possession receiver or Landry for a speed receiver, whatever one you want to let go, but you don't need both of them with that style of offense. You're going to run the football. You have tight ends that can play. You got some speed and Higgins. So I mean, I don't know. That's just my opinion. I would trade one of those two, and get some picks that can help you build. That's going to be a lot cheaper. Minnesota and Tennessee. Don't know what's going on with Minnesota. I picked Tennessee in this game. That was a pick'em game for me. You wouldn't think Minnesota would have started the year 0-3, but something's just not right with Kirk Cousins right now. I don't know what's going on, whether or not it's the new play caller or, the not being on the same page. Like, this is the first game they finally got the kid Justin Jefferson involved, and it paid dividends. He was the best pure route runner in the draft to me. I know Jerry Jeudy got that a lot of praise for that, and he's a really good route runner in his own right. But Justin Jefferson could do everything Jerry Jeudy does, and he's just bigger. He's a 6'2", 190. He's a 6'2", 6'3", bigger frame. Played in the slot. I think he has better hands. I don't know. I like Jefferson better than I like Jeudy. I wanted Jefferson for the Eagles. Instead, we drafted Jake Rager, but I'll get to the Eagles in a minute. But when you look at the Minnesota Vikings, they have everything you need. Their offensive line is a little average, but I mean, you have an elite running back. You have 2 really good receivers, and really a third in Tajay Sharp. I like him as well. Madison's a good backup running back. Like Kirk Cousins has everything you need to win. I don't know what to say. He's just not it. And he got an extension, so they're kind of stuck with him. He's not it. If I'm Minnesota, man, I would get rid. Either you got to get rid of Mike Zimmer, bring in an offensive guy that can get the best out of Kirk Cousins, or you have to let Kirk Cousins go in the offseason or figure out a way to trade him and figure something out, because it's not working. At best, they'll finish 8-8, But you just never know with the injuries. But in that division, I don't see anything but 8-8 for them. If that might be a gift. Tennessee has to get on track running the football. Derrick Henry ended up having a good game, but the reason why the game was even that close, it got out of hand for them, was because they weren't running the football effectively early. If they can run the football the way they need to run it, then they'll have the play action. They'll be able to do more things. They're missing A.J. Brown. They need him back. They need him back expeditiously. But Ryan Tannehill's improved. He's not turning the ball over at an alarming rate. He takes care of the football. They run the football well. He's a good play action passer. So I like Tennessee. Like I said in my earlier picks in episode 1, I like Tennessee to win that division, man. When you can run the ball effectively and they're committed to it and their defense is solid, they should be able to win that division. And plus, like I said, that division is horrible. It's not as horrible as the NFC East, but it's horrible. Moving right along to the New England and the Las Vegas Rams. Raiders. I got to get used to that. Las Vegas Raiders. I picked New England in that game. There's really not a lot to break down. The New England Patriots don't lose at home. 1, 2. The way the Raiders play football, you're not going to beat New England that way. You're not going to be able to pound it against New England and beat them up and with just a pure I formation and run the football at them. That's not happening. You got to have a quarterback who's dynamic that can threaten them with bootlegs and zone reads and different things like that to really run the football on them. And it hurt that they didn't have Ruggs. They would have had Ruggs, that might have helped, but no Henry Ruggs that game. That was an easy game for Cam and them. New England needs healthier receivers. If I'm New England, I've been saying this for the last few weeks. I got to call Cleveland and say, what does it take to get OBJ? How much do you need? Because at this rate, his value isn't going to get higher if I'm the Browns. I think the Browns probably want a 1, but in my opinion, I think a 2 should be able to get it done. 2 2s or a 2 and a 3 should get that done. If I'm New England, I make that trade now because you clearly see that Cam is back. Cam is playing at a high level. He's making those C+ to B- receivers look better than they are. Those receivers are I think Harry's going to get better, but I don't see Harry ever being more than a number 2. He doesn't have that extra gear in him. He's a big physical receiver. And as he learns how to run routes, he'll get better, but he's not explosive down the field. He reminds me a lot of Mohamed Sanu, honestly. I think he'll be a Mohamed Sanu type player. I think that's a really good, if you got him at the end of the first round and you tell me you get a Mohamed Sanu type player, a borderline Pro Bowler, that's solid. So that's not to say N'Keal Harry can't play, but I just don't project him as being a legit number 1. If you could bring OBJ into that offense, he's going to come there disciplined. He worked out with Cam in the offseason. They have a rapport. They'll be able to hit the ground running. And he'll be that threat that you need to go over top. So now New England can get into their run game, into their play action game that are all Cam Newton strengths, and that could take them to the next level. Because right now, they're the third best team in the AFC. But I think if they get Cam a legit weapon to go with Belichick, it's going to be hard to beat them. Let's just call a spade a spade. The New England Patriots are still the New England Patriots. And it's shocking to say that because you would think there would be some sort of hiccups along the way. But looking at their schedule and their division, I think the Bills are going to be 2 tough all 4 games. But I mean the rest of the AFC, besides Baltimore and the Chiefs, I mean the rest of the AFC isn't anything crazy that they can't handle. So we'll see. So going right into the next game. San Francisco and the Giants. I picked San Francisco, obviously. I mean, they blew the Giants out. I don't know what the Giants are doing right now. I mean, I know you lost Saquon Barkley, but man, 9 points. You drafted Daniel Jones that high, and that's all he could give you. Because it's not like the receivers are bad. You still had Evan Ingram. You still have Shepard. You got Slayton. I don't know. I didn't watch that game in full, so I don't believe Golden Tate played, but if he did, you have Golden Tate, who's still a solid receiver in this league. So I don't know what the direction the Giants are going. Obviously, you got to give Daniel Jones another year, but, I mean, he's got to show a sign because there's a couple quarterbacks in this draft. I mean, I don't know if I could pass on Justin Fields for him. I don't know if I could pass on Trey Lance out of North Dakota State for him. I don't know if I could do it because we know Trevor Lawrence isn't going to make it past one. But them two boys can go. So, in my opinion, I just don't know. So, he's going to have to show something in New York. But we don't got to talk about that game long. Oh, man, now to talk about my hometown team, the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Cincinnati Bengals, man. What a travesty the Philadelphia Eagles are right now. Like, I'm so frustrated with Howie Roseman, man. Howie Roseman the past 2 years, let me tell y'all who he didn't draft, right? Who he had an opportunity to draft, and he didn't draft. He drafted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in the top half of the second round of last year's draft. Do you know A.J. Brown was available? Do you know that DK Metcalf was available? That's just at the receiver spot. Unexcusable. That, like, how do you watch the film? How do you look at the film of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and watch A.J. Brown in his junior year at Ole Miss, and you watch DK Metcalf in his sophomore year at Ole Miss playing against SEC level comp, playing against other pros, and they dominate against other pros with poor quarterback play at Ole Miss, and you draft J.J. Arcega-Whiteside out of Stanford? Are you kidding me? Like, I this is something, and my guys will tell you, man, this is something that's been bothering me for a while. Like, who's in your scouting department that had those two rated higher than them? Like, that makes no sense, especially after DK Metcalf's combine. So, at minimum, he was a deep threat, and you needed speed. Now, fast forward to this year's draft. We need speed, right? You let Nelson Aguilar go, as you should. He couldn't catch a cold. No hands Nelson. Walking around with Captain Hook hands. And so that made sense for you to let him go, right? And, you know, Deshaun Jackson wasn't healthy, and he's getting older, so you know you needed some receiver help. That way you don't have to play all practice squad guys to get into the playoffs. And so in the draft, I just know looking at the team we have with the amount of receivers in this year's draft, and the issue that we had was catching the football and being able to separate against man coverage, that we were going to be able to get either Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, or Justin Jefferson. Now, lo and behold, the draft goes, and Henry Ruggs is the first receiver taken. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, cool. Because I didn't expect Henry Ruggs to get past the Raiders. And then Jerry Jeudy goes off the board, which I didn't expect at Denver, but it made sense for Denver to take him. They got a young quarterback they're trying to build. So that makes all the sense in the world. So Judy's going. Now CeeDee Lamb is sitting there. And he falls, and he falls, and he falls again. And I'm like, will he fall all the way to Philadelphia? Then I look at the Cowboys pick. I'm like, the Cowboys aren't going to pass on CeeDee Lamb. They're just not going to do it. The kid is from Texas. He's from right up the street. There's just no way. So I'm like, all right, well, we got this second round pick, and we really need a receiver. And the hands is there. He's big body. He can mature and turn into a Alshon Jeffrey type body in terms of being a big body receiver. He has that type of frame. But he's more dynamic than Alshon, not comparing their skill set, just more so the size, pause. And nope, you let the Cowboys get him. So I'm like, all right, bet. I was cool because I'm like, oh, my man Justin Jefferson out of LSU, because I fell in love with watching him, man. His route running, the way he gets in and out of cuts, his hands. I didn't see him drop a ball all year at LSU. Find me the footage and send it to me. I ain't see him drop nothing. So I'm like, all right, at minimum, we get him. But what do? They reach for Jalen Reagor, a kid who's supposed to be a speed guy but ran 4.49 at the combine, which means Justin Jefferson outran him. But you can see on film he's more explosive than that, so I'll give them that. But then a kid that was injured his whole career. He was injured his whole career at TCU. And then he didn't run the whole route tree at TCU. Whereas Justin Jefferson's at LSU ran all the whole route tree, run any route in the NFL playbook, and had the hands to match. Jalen Reagor, besides the speed, didn't have elite hands. Again, I think he'll be a good player in the league, but not that high. You could have got him in the second round, honestly. Honestly, you could have got him in the second round. We could have got Justin Jefferson and got him in the second round. Because if you look at what they did in the draft, they still went and drafted more speed later in the draft when getting the kid out of Southern Miss and the kid out of Boise. And both of those guys aren't ready for prime time. We've seen them 3 games thus far. They're not ready for prime time yet. So you wasted your first round pick. You just wasted it. And so, getting off the Eagles, man, Howie Roseman's got to go. I'm down on Carson, but I'm not gonna I gotta see more. I'm not ready to jump off the Carson bandwagon yet, but I'm getting close. I'm getting close, guys. I'm not gonna hold you. I'm getting close, but that's too much time on the sorry Eagles, man. I'm gonna move on, man. Love them, but they sorry. Golly, they sorry. So I picked the Eagles to win, but it's a tie, so I broke even on that. Going into Houston and Pittsburgh, Houston let me down. I had Houston getting off the snide and getting the win. But Pittsburgh was able to come back in the second half, ran off 21 unanswered points, man, and just took it over. Pittsburgh's a good team. They're living out to my prediction that I had earlier in the season. They're looking like the number 2 team in their division. But they could challenge the Ravens. I could see it happening now that Big Ben is fully healthy. So with that particular game, I'm not really surprised that Pittsburgh won, but I did think that Houston with Deshaun Watson and how Pittsburgh came off the field against Denver playing against a backup and not doing it specifically well, I would have thought that Deshaun Watson could have pulled that out, but they shut him out second half. So another disappointing loss for Houston. Shout out to my guy MH. The Texans is sorry, bro. Easy button on the Texans, but that's here nor there. Moving on to the Indianapolis versus the Jets, I picked Indianapolis. Nothing really to discuss. The Jets are terrible. If you want Jets breakdown, go to listen to a New York station. You know what I mean? The Jets is sorry. I'm not finna break down that game. Chargers, Carolina. I picked the Chargers. I ended up being wrong there. I thought the Chargers just had more defensive talent, but I underestimated what Teddy Bridgewater was bringing to the table. So kudos to the Carolina Panthers. Tampa Bay, Denver, Tom Brady, man, they're starting to do some things. If you look at how they're running the football, now that their receivers are getting healthy, they're starting to get in the rhythm. And I told you guys about the Saints, but nobody wanted to listen to me, but I'll get to them in a second. Tampa Bay is looking like the best team in that division, man. So when you're right so far. So I will temper down expectations, but when you're right, you're right. Like I told y'all, and all the Saints fans that hit me after the first episode, talk to me now. As they say up north, talk to me nice. But we'll move on. Arizona, Detroit. That was another pick'em game for me. I like Detroit. I didn't expect them to go on 3, but I just thought that Kyler Murray was playing at a really good level, and they confused him a couple times. He had 3 interceptions. You can't win like that, and that's why Arizona lost. So kudos to Detroit. So I picked Arizona though, so I got that one wrong. Dallas and Seattle. I picked Seattle. Dallas wasn't going. I don't care if Dallas was playing at the best they could play. They wasn't going to go to Seattle and beat Russell Wilson. Had that been in Dallas, maybe I would have picked the Cowboys, but they wasn't going to Seattle and winning that. And I couldn't see anybody who would have picked that game unless you're just a Dallas homer. You're not going to Seattle and beating them unless you're an elite team. And Dallas is not that. Green Bay versus New Orleans. I picked Green Bay. Green Bay dominated that game, if you ask me, and they did it without their best target on offense and Devontae Adams. Aaron Rodgers is back to being the great one. There's really nothing else to really break down. And as I discussed, so the Monday night game, I had the Baltimore Ravens beating the Kansas City Chiefs, but as we sit here today, and as we're talking about it, it's not looking good for that pick. The Chiefs. The Chiefs got out on them early, and just for whatever reason, man, the Ravens are not built to come from behind. They're just not. They weren't able to run the football effectively early, and because of that reason, as we talk on this podcast right now, they're down 27-13. I don't foresee them coming back. But the issue with the Ravens is that they can't throw just because they want to throw. They throw because they throw when they want to based on their running game. Like, they're a team that throws to keep balance. They're not a team that could just roll off 20 straight passes and be successful offensively. And when you get down 27-13, that's what you have to do. And their receivers aren't good enough to do that yet. They'll get there. They can fill a role, but they don't. He doesn't have anybody who he could just go to that he knows can get open. Besides the tight end, and you can't win in this league when the tight end is your biggest threat on the field. The tight end can be your primary receiver, but he can't be your biggest threat on the field, unless it's Rob Gronkowski in New England. But again, he had other supporting cast around him that filled roles for that team when they were in their prime that allowed him to be who he was. But so that's the NFL breakdown for this week. You can see my picks on the SFG Sports Pod on Instagram or at J_Howard2 on Instagram. I post my picks every Sunday. I haven't been picking a Thursday game. I'm going to start picking a Thursday game this week. I really don't like Thursday night football. I think Thursday night football is trash football, and normally the home team wins, so I don't really get anything out of picking them. And the only reason why the Dolphins beat the Jaguars last week because they were in the state of Florida, so that wasn't really even a home game. There's no home fans, so that's really what it is. So the last game of the game is on right now. The Kansas City Chiefs, and they're playing basketball on grass right now against Baltimore. And that leads me right into my next topic. The NBA Finals are set. Yes. The NBA Finals are set, and I'm really excited about it. Man. I really think the best two teams are in the finals. I love how the Lakers closed out the Nuggets, and I loved how Miami closed out Boston. I revisiting the last pod, I did pick Boston in 7, but if you listened, I prefaced by saying that Miami was playing the better basketball right now. And Miami won for the reasons that I said they would win. But I just went with my prior pick before the playoffs of the Boston Celtics. So let's talk about it, man. So the Lakers pose an interesting dynamic to Miami, being that Miami hasn't had to play a legit big man this playoffs, right? That can really dominate from the inside, that can patrol the inside, be a rim protector, and be somebody you have to double on the offensive end of the floor. Because unlike Giannis, Anthony Davis can hit jump shots. He has a complete floor game. He can score on all 3 levels, and he makes it tough on you defensively as well. Now, the interesting thing about Miami is how they switch defenses up and how they're able to be multiple and how they guard things and be able to switch things. Whereas with the Lakers, I don't think they're going to be able to switch in that way. I think they'll be able to switch 1 through 3, especially if they go with a bigger lineup. But in the bigger lineup we're talking about is putting Andre Iguodala at the 3, using Jimmy at the 2. Or really Jimmy at the 1, and then Jay Crowder at the 2 or the 3, and spelling Dragic a little bit, because I just don't see Miami having enough size. I think Myers Leonard is going to be overmatched. Kelly Olynyk is going to have to play really, really well. They're going to have to play really, really well defensively, because besides ball pressure on the perimeter, it's going to be tough for them in that zone to be able to get the Lakers out of the square. But man to man is going to be tough too. So the thing we do know about Miami, they're going to compete. They're not going to have a lot of defensive breakdowns. The Lakers are going to earn what they get, but Anthony Davis is just so good, man. Anthony Davis is playing. He's falling out of bed and getting you 30 right now. He's getting out of bed. Here's 30. Here's 30 and 10. And it's hard. That's tough to compete with. Bam Adebayo is playing really good basketball right now, but when you throw a lineup of Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard, there's like, who do you want him to guard? He can't guard both of them, because if you go big, if you're Miami, and bring in a Myers Leonard or Kelly Olynyk, those guys can't bang with Dwight Howard underneath. So we'll see how that works out. I think LeBron is in a unique situation where I don't think LeBron has to be the dominant force for the Lakers to win this championship. I think LeBron can play a really good floor game, get everybody involved, get guys off shooting wise. He still needs to be in the 20s, but I don't think we need to see virtuoso classic LeBron performances where he's giving you 45 and just doing everything. I think they play through AD. It's going to be tough for Miami to beat. Whereas vice versa, offensively now, this is where Miami does have a shot. The fact that they move the ball so well and they share the basketball and they don't run, what's interesting about Miami, they don't run set plays. They run actions, right? So everything they do on the floor, they have principles involved in each spot that allows them to get into offense. So that's why you see them able to move so well on the perimeter, because there's no standing around, because everything has an action to it. And I love that style of offense. If you think to the Warriors, everybody's watched the Warriors for years, so you could think to the Warriors. The Warriors never looked like they were running an actual play. They just had principles, and that's what a motion offense is. Motion offense is principles, so you could be anywhere on the floor, and any cut is just based on reads, and that's what the Miami Heat do. And the fact that Bam Adebayo is so fluent with the basketball in his hands, it allows them to go in a really, really good direction of ball movement. I think Harrell's going to have to be a really good player for them in this series. He's going to have to continue to play big. Jimmy Butler's going to have to play like a star. He's going to have to play like a star. If Jimmy Butler doesn't play like a star, it's going to be tough. Because you need that in this type of a series. You need that in this type of a series. So, getting to the pick'em, it's tough, man. It's tough, man. But I'm gonna say the Lakers in 6. I just don't foresee Miami winning. Again, like I said before, Miami can win if they're able to score efficiently on offense. They have to be able to put up 110 points a game every game. Like, they have to be hot. Because they're going to compete defensively, but you're going to have to be able to outscore the Lakers, and I don't think they're built that way to do that. But the credit I'll give to Eric Spoelstra is he is the better coach in the series, so I would imagine he's going to come up with some things to maybe slow the game down to keep the Lakers out of transition, to be able to force the entry passes to Anthony Davis to be tougher, and maybe force Anthony Davis to get his catches more on the perimeter rather than 17 feet and in. So I'll give Eric Spoelstra that credit by saying, that he can do some things schematically that's going to get them closer, but I think this is just going to come down to the X's and the O's, man, and I'm going to go with the Lakers in 6, man. Lakers in 6. So finally, guys, we're going to get to our music segment before we close this thing on out. I'm going to close this thing on out with the music segment. And the album of the week for me this week, and there was a lot of music that came out, but I'm gonna go rap again. I'm gonna go rap again this week. Occupational Hazard by Mozzie, man. I was getting into that project over the weekend. I really like that project. If you're a fan of tough, rugged hip hop, talking that talk, the Mozzie project, Occupational Hazard, is really good. There's a bunch of good records on that thing that I like. The Carter 5 Deluxe was some mid to me. I didn't really feel it. But I also say this. Say what you want about Tory Lanez, and I've said a lot. I feel like he's a cornball. The rollout for his project was doofy. It was just so untimely. He didn't read the room, but I'll tell you this. The music was good. The music was good. I mean, the one listen I gave it, the music was good. I'm not going to listen to it again because I'm not supporting this particular project, but the music was good. So I mean, if you haven't listened to it, it's worth a listen. But again, I just don't support the rollout. That was corny, but we'll talk about that another day. And the last music take I have, Bryson Tiller. How do you not put an album out in 4 years? Because his second album was trash, so we're not even going to count the second album. You've been sitting there, we assume making music, right? We assume. And you give us a deluxe of Trap Soul with like 3 records on it? Come on, son. You got to do better than that. Like, there's no way. Like, I don't know who's his manager. And the music people I've talked to have all agreed with me. Like, they didn't get it. Apparently he has the album. He is releasing the album. It's called the Anniversary album, coming out on Saturday. So I guess maybe that was just a prelude. He just wanted to generate a buzz. I don't know. But all he did was make me mad because I've been waiting on him. So we'll see what he does. What he does this on Friday, when the release comes out. But again, back to my album of the week, Occupational Hazard by Mozzie. Really good project. And also, I want to shout out my guys out of Atlantic City, out Pleasantville, man. My guy Juice, my guys Guru, Go Hard for Life Entertainment, up and coming record label out Atlantic City, man. Those guys have got a lot of good young artists coming up, man. So check them out on Instagram at Go Hard for Life ENT. Shout out to my guy Juice, man, doing big things, man. Doing big things in the boxing ring now in the music game. So shout out to my guy. But yeah, man, thanks for tuning in. This has been an SFG Sports Pod, episode 3, with your host Jerry Howell. And signing off. Everybody have a great week.